So Aleister Crowley, we spoke a little bit about him last week. He is, in modern terms at the very least, the man that you have everything in the occult to thank for, pretty much. At least in the mainstream version of the occult. He was known as the most wicked man in the world. He practiced several different forms of almost Kabbalistic magic. He founded a religious order, religious/philosophical order called Thelema. And he was very influential inside of the spheres of entertainment, especially in music. There were various artists that attribute a lot of their success to his teachings.
When we looked at that
beliefs.
last week,
Exactly.
There's a segment about Absol that we we're gonna drop this weekend.
This weekend, sure enough. One of his most famous events, something that we're going to cover tonight, the Abramelin work, happened, I want to say, in 1918. So Crowley is a figure that is, 20th century as 20th century can get in terms of his influence. And I think that's a lot of the reason you see his influence stacking up the way it does in the modern world, is because he was at such an early point in the media revolution in the culture that we exist in, that he was able to get into it pretty deep.
We were looking, he's on the cover of
Sgt.
Pepper's.
Sure enough, Sgt. Pepper's
album?
Lonely Hearts Club Band. He is in the back left corner. They got a lot of... the album covers a lot of famous people. They have some Indian yogis. They have some...
Gandhi's on it.
They have celebrities. There's a couple of wax figures. Most of them are cutouts. But it's interesting to see Crowley included among the mix. He doesn't have the same mainstream connections to any of the other figures that they had on there that everyone else in that group kind of shares, but on the back end of things, he is influential inside of those connections. You could probably draw a 6 ways to Kevin Bacon about every single person on that album cover and Crowley. You guys know what I mean by 6 ways to Kevin Bacon, right?
Yeah.
I don't actually.
No, okay.
It's like
6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, thank you. Degrees of separation.
You're only like 6 people away from anyone in the world, basically. And I guarantee you could do that with less steps with Crowley and everyone on this album cover.
When we were titling this stream, we titled it Crowley's Demon at the end, because kind of have an idea of what we were going to cover. And what did I say? I'm like, Crowley's, and I'm looking at Chance. I'm like, what are we going to call it? I'm like, Crowley's a dick?
Ain't he though? Oh my god. The man is something else. He is absolutely wild. The more I learn about him, and I thought I knew a decent amount about him. I'd learned about Crowley a long time ago, and I've known about him, but I'm digging a little bit deeper, and I'm finding out some really, really interesting stuff. Actually, one of the articles I sent you, I think it's the very first one there, seems to be an urban legend-esque retelling of a gentleman dealing with someone that had the idea that Crowley created the Loch Ness Monster. Essentially, he bought a house on the shores of Loch Ness to conduct magic rituals. It was like a temple that he created and set away from the world so that he could do rituals. And we've got, if you scroll down, I'll go ahead and read through this. So, the myths of a country travel better than its truths. Once, in a bar in downtown Los Angeles, I got into a conversation with a man whose teeth were all gold caps. He asked me where I was from. Shit, you're from Scotland? You ever see that Loch Ness Monster? No. But you know about it, right? Oh yeah. Yeah? You know all about it, Not really. No? Then you don't know who made it? Made it? Yeah, that's what I said. I thought for a moment. You mean Crowley? Aleister Crowley? That's the man. That's him right there, yes. That is, I'll go ahead and just...
The evil MF.
Yeah, I'll ad save us that one. Who made it? Crowley allegedly... You're right.
Crowley's a dick.
Crowley allegedly made the Loch Ness Monster when he failed to complete a complex magic ritual at Boleskine House. His failure was said to have unleashed a demon. Crowley had purchased Boleskine House on the southeast shore of Loch Ness in order to carry out a series of rituals from the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. He had chosen Boleskine because he required a house where proper precautions against disturbance can be taken. This being arranged, there is really nothing to do but to aspire with increasing fervor and concentration for 6 months towards the obtaining of the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. And I'll go ahead and stop on this article right there, and we'll move more into Boleskine House on another article that I have for you.
Have you watched this video? I just
not this one. No, it's about 28 minutes long. Yeah. I haven't seen it.
I'm not gonna play it.
Yeah,
I
just
like the title, The Other Loch Ness Monster.
I am definitely interested. I was going to take a look at it later on and see if there was anything that could be pulled out of it, but I have not seen it at this point, no. This is an article describing just a few of the different places that Crowley ended up performing rituals or doing magic or was influential in some way in the world.
Magic with a K is bad news.
Magic with a K is bad news. I've never seen Magic with a K go well. But yeah, if you scroll down, number 2 in this list is going to be the Boleskine House, and I'll read a little bit about its history.
Inverness.
Right there on the shores of Loch Ness. This is like right at the edge there. And that picture, it's an interesting house too. It's definitely older. Very large. That is probably a 3,000 to 5,000 square foot house if I'm being honest looking at it. The thing's got 7 chimneys, right? We have Boleskine House was steeped in darkness long before Crowley moved in. The manor is allegedly built atop the ruins of a 10th century church that burnt to the ground during a service, killing all the congregants inside. Crowley bought Boleskine House to seclude himself and perform magic from the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. It was during this period that Crowley became famous for his occultism and black magic, both around Scotland and later the world. Sometime during this period, Mathers called Crowley to Paris. He left without dispelling the 12 kings and dukes of hell he had summoned, and many locals blame the house's unlucky history on evil spirits left behind. Now, to elaborate a bit, because the end of that article makes no sense without understanding what the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage is.
Yeah.
So, the Abramelin work, as it's called, is a magic ritual that is a ritual of purification. It is to purify one's soul and allow you to converse with what is essentially a guardian angel, not necessarily in the Christian sense, but more in just a general sense of what that word means. And the ritual involves probably about 12 months of work. And the first 6 months are about intense seclusion and prayer, where you slowly isolate yourself from the real world, and you forego sex, you forego alcohol, you forego intoxicants. Over the period of 6 months, essentially you wean yourself down to nothing. At the same time, you're increasing your prayer to whatever spiritual entity you are trying to reach. And after that period of 6 months... What's that?
I was just going to say, that's not unlike a lot of other religious practices.
Not at all. Not at all.
Specifically, like, shamanic practices.
No doubt.
But also
it's like
monks and...
like a spiritual fasting. I mean, it even
purifying is the idea, right?
It even holds, like, Lent. We have, like, Ramadan.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, even mainstream religion that have this almost, like, purification window, but it's not exactly the same.
But it's not unique to Abrahamic religions.
No.
We see this across spirituality.
Abramelin the Mage is also known in literary works as Abraham the Jew. He lived from 1362 to 1458, and it seems this was the main grimoire that he put forth, was the Book of Abramelin the Mage. And the Kabbalah is kind of a Judaistic mysticism, very specifically, and a lot of Crowley's work leans into the Kabbalah as a base for its operation. There's a lot of tie-ins between the Kabbalah and Hermeticism. They were almost developed congruently between two religious ideologies. Hermeticism had ties loosely to Christianity and early Gnostic faiths, and the Kabbalah was the Judaistic teachings of that. So yeah, that's my bad. I had to think on that for a second to realize, wait a minute, yeah, he was part of an Abrahamic faith.
I mean, you could argue Satanism is an Abrahamic religion.
Yeah. To a degree, you could, depending on the Satanism that you're, because there's theistic and there's non-theistic Satanism, right?
Well, they're both a reaction to Christianity.
No doubt, 110%.
And Abrahamic religions.
110%.
And one is essentially renouncing it as truth at all.
Yeah.
The other one is flipping the truth on its head.
I don't often compare the two very much.
I don't know anything about that text, so he's there. I'm meditating and fasting
and that's the first
studying this
6
book.
months, right? That's the first 6 months of the ritual. The next 6 months deal with what we were seeing there. You must summon the 12 kings and dukes of hell, and this goes back to the Ars Goetia, Solomon's Key, the pact to bind them. You are essentially
committing to rule them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You're essentially invoking Solomon's pact amongst the princes of hell. And that is a months-long process. And then there is another months-long process where after you evoke and banish the princes and dukes of hell from your mind, because essentially it's like a cleansing of your spirit, your mind, your soul, like that. So you're not like banishing them from a physical realm. You are summoning them to a physical realm to lock them out of your mind, is what the ritual is trying to accomplish. So you are then set to summon the princes that serve under the kings and the dukes for another months-long process. And then it goes on like that, where you go down this ladder of the hierarchy of hell for a while. And at the end of it, once you banish all of them out, you will essentially be able to converse with like a holy guardian spirit assigned to you in a way, and be able to understand what the purity you have gained from casting out all of the demonic influence. What they mean when they say he didn't finish the ritual is he summoned them. He evoked the princes and the kings of hell.
But he didn't cast them out.
He never banished them.
Which sounds like a Crowley thing to do.
Partway through the ritual, he was summoned to another country by another mage. I forget the gentleman's name.
Would he have even banished him? I mean, we're talking
I doubt
about
it. Frankly, I doubt it.
The father of Satanism, right?
The man was pure sensationalism, and what's more sensationalist than opening a portal to hell and leaving it open?
I heard he's George W. Bush's dad.
That makes sense to me.
It's a whole different thing, though. That's a Rumble segment.
So that gives us a little bit of predisposition onto what, or that's not the right word. You get what I mean. Onto what he was doing there, and why he chose that house. It was very secluded. He was able to bring himself away from the populace. He didn't have the influences of the outside world, and it is a pretty fairly spiritually clean place. Scotland at the time wasn't overrun with industrialization. There was a lot of nature abound.
I think there still is in this region anyway.
Absolutely, no doubt. The house itself, there are some wild stuff around it too. If we read a little bit further in the article, I'll get into that. So we have, first, Crowley's housekeeper's 2 children died mysteriously and abruptly. Crowley also bragged that one employee of the estate, who had long abstained from alcohol, got drunk and attempted to murder his entire family. After the house had changed hands, it still wasn't free of dark energy. In 1965, the army major who owned the house committed suicide by shotgun. The next owner, Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page, spent very little time at the estate, instead bequeathing it to a friend who didn't mind the unexplained creaks, groans, and various ghostly apparitions.
Man.
Jimmy
We
Page
did this
bought
last
Crowley's
week with
house.
Jimmy Page.
Yep.
We did this last week with Jimmy Page, and I defended him. I'm like, yeah, he's just talking, But here he is.
House.
Yeah, it's rotating cast of characters around Aleister Crowley.
Rotating cast. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's very, very interesting, and these are people that aren't just nobodies. Crowley himself wasn't a nobody. If someone like Crowley came around today and did what Crowley did, he would be written off immediately. You couldn't get away with it. Like, he occupies such an interesting cultural space.
I think we have a million Crowleys out there now.
Yeah, that we do. Or a million wannabe Crowleys. There's a million people that really want to be Crowley. And I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way either.
I do. I do.
I can respect looking up to the occult and wanting the knowledge, having an urge to find the knowledge. I don't necessarily respect people that try to follow directly in Crowley's footsteps. I think he was a crazy man.
I don't invoke the term often, but he seemed like he was evil. Intentionally evil. I don't think he would even deny that necessarily. I don't know.
I don't know if he would deny it, but I would argue, let me play devil's advocate for a second here. I would argue maybe he was just being sensationalist.
Yeah, I think he would argue that there's maybe no such thing as evil. I think he would dismiss the concept outright.
We should get him on the show. You guys want to have a seance?
No.
I don't know. No. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline from Dark Dial. If you liked our video, please like, subscribe, or give us a follow. And check us out Friday nights live. And check out darkdial.com. And we hope to see you Friday.